Welcome to Waukesha County GovCast, your source for what's happening in our vibrant community. I'm your host, Hillary Mintz, Public Information Officer.
And I'm Sean Lundy, Chief of Staff for Waukesha County Executive Paul Farrow.
Each episode, we dive into the latest news, community projects, and the initiatives shaping Waukesha County, where innovation meets public service. From in-depth discussions on local governance to county services, we're here to keep you informed and connected. So whether you're a resident, a business owner, or just curious about local government, join us for a closer look at the heart of your county. Welcome to GovCast. Today is Thursday, July 10th. We have a returning guest today who we will check in with in just a sec. But first, here's what's happening in Waukesha County. The fair kicks off next week, running July 16th to the 20th at our Waukesha County Expo Center. Come check out the state's oldest county fair, where we will have representatives from our Sheriff's Department, Health and Human Services, Bridges Libraries, and staff from Parks and Land Use at the 4-H Kids Zone. Food Truck Fridays at the airport are off to a hot start. So far, hundreds of aviation enthusiasts have stopped by Kreitz Field for some tasty food. It runs Friday through the end of August. Proceeds support local nonprofit organizations. Also next month marks the 90th anniversary of the airport. Staff are working on some special events to commemorate the anniversary. You can even share your favorite memories of the airport in a video. For more information, check out waukeshacounty.gov. And if you drive near the airport, you might be rerouted due to construction. Silvernail Road from Grandview to Blue Mound will be closed until mid-August, as crews will be shifting part of the runway, which is part of the Wisconsin Department of Transportation's Runway Safety Area Improvement Project. Well, welcome to GovCast. As you can probably tell, this does not look like the recording studio you might normally see us in at Waukesha City Hall. Nope, we're hitting the road today, and we're going to be talking about road projects because, after all, it is summer construction season. So I'm playing backseat driver today, and Sean Lundy behind the wheel here. Hey, Hillary. Hey, Sean, and back on GovCast. It's been a little while. DPW Department of Public Works Director Allison Bussler. Allison, thanks for catching a ride with us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me along on your road trip.
Well, and as I mentioned, we're not in the studio. If you watched last episode of GovCast, we were with Parks and Land Use at Nagawaki Golf Course. So, it's this time of year in Waukesha County where you can really get outside and see all the wonderful things. But today, yes, we're going to drive through the detours and we're going to just talk about, these road projects, how they're funded, who pays for them, how they even come to be. I mean, how Allison and her team are deciding how to even go about starting these projects. And, Allison, we mentioned you were on with us in February. It was the dead of winter. We were talking heavily about snowplows, a lot of salt talk during that episode.
She was salty.
But here we are, right? We're in summer construction season. These aren't projects that pop up overnight. I mean, these are years in the making.
You're exactly correct. I would say on average, we're planning 6 years in advance, but some more complicated projects even longer. So the county has a 5-year capital plan, so anybody who's interested can go online and look at our plan at least 5 years out and see what we're planning to do.
In fact, you just had your capital projects plan with the county executive just this week.
Absolutely. It's our time to kind of present new projects and give the rationale. We share some data about the traffic counts and the accident counts and really the justification for why we think those projects should be prioritized over others in the county.
Is that the primary indicator? Is it accident data? Is it a safety first thing, or is it road condition, pavement rating, all of that sort of stuff? What's the primary? How do you get on the list?
I would say safety is a top priority, absolutely, and that is one data set that we look at. And but there are other factors as well. We certainly look at the pavement condition. There's a rating system that would rate how smooth and safe the pavement is. There is also, we look at traffic counts and traffic volumes. And when dollars are tight, we also look at grant programs and what projects would be eligible for some of those dollars, because oftentimes we're able to secure 80% federal funds. So our 20% federal funds go a whole lot farther in those projects than they would when a project is 100% county funded.
So what's the advantage though of 100% county funded versus, obviously if we can get money somewhere, we're going to try to get money somewhere and save local taxpayer dollars. But what is that like? Is there an advantage to having full county funding?
Absolutely. If you talk to any of my counterparts across the state, we would all choose local funds because there's not all that federal red tape. And when you sign up for federal dollars, it increased the cost of every project and it increased the timeline. So we would much prefer to have those local dollars if and when we could afford them. Those projects go a lot more smooth, but when tax dollars are limited, we have to get creative and go for those federal funds.
Yeah, makes sense.
So some of the some of the projects we're going to check out today, we're going to begin our journey in the southern portion of the county in New Berlin. We're going to head up Moreland Road. That stretch has been under construction for years. Then we're going to hit I-94, and then we're going to make our way up to Lisbon to highlight, again, some of those projects. But, as we make our way to New Berlin, and we'll talk more about this when we get to that area, but Moreland Road, I mean, how many years has it been under construction?
Well, we did our first intersection, the construction was in 2020. And we were planning for probably 5 years prior to that. So really the construction of Moreland Road is a 10-year plan. And back to Sean's question, in my perfect world, we would have just had $80 million laying around and we could have done that in 1 year and it would have been done and less disruptive. But $80 million is a really big price tag. And so what we've done is break it down to 6 smaller projects. And was a much better chance that we were able to get federal funds asking for a smaller dollar amount than that whole big $80 million project.
So where does Moreland Road, assuming that, if you think about it as, you pull back and it's one big project, where does Moreland Road rank in the history of Waukesha County projects as far as expenses?
Sure. Well, it's absolutely our most expensive road project in the history of Waukesha County. And so it's a significant investment, even that 20% from county government, and it's more than 20% that the county's putting in. But that has been it has dominated our capital plan for 10 years.
And so to get that federal money, are we lobbying the federal government? I know we have a close relationship with both U.S. senators' offices, as well as Congressman Scott Fitzgerald has been instrumental in really pushing for federal money. And, there are changes going on in Washington that might impact not only this project, but how we are funding other projects. How does that work with those conversations with our representatives in Washington?
Well, I would say those are really supplemental conversations to the normal grant process flow. So I would say the lion's share of the dollars that Waukesha County gets for those, like the Moreland Road projects types, comes through federal funds that flow through a committee in southeastern Wisconsin, and they're dedicated. About $50 million comes every 2 years to the Milwaukee urbanized area for all the municipalities, all the projects. There's $50 million. So when I said it was an $80 million project, it would have taken all the money for 4 years for the whole region. City of Milwaukee wouldn't have got anything. A lot of other places, nothing. So that really isn't possible. So we have to break it down, and that's our main share. However, again, you're applying for these funds sometimes 6 years in advance. And so then COVID comes and construction costs soar, and instead of 3% inflation, we have 20% inflation. But those dollars, those federal dollars are frozen, so we have to come up with all new local dollars. And so that's where we've been working with Congressman Fitzgerald's office to say, hey, you know, no one could have predicted 23% inflation in 1 year on some of our projects.
Right.
Could you help us out with that specific problem? And their office has been great to work with. But it remains to be seen yet if some of those dollars that we've been working with them will come through on the project.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are headed north on Moreland Road, County Highway O. Major construction project, as we've mentioned. Multiple segments, federal money, lots of cash involved.
Right.
Jostling with the timing and all those sorts of things. And we're kind of coming up on I-43, and we'll cross under that. And we'll get to a segment of the road that has already been completed. Behind us is a section of road that's yet to be done.
Right.
Then we're going to enter another section of road that is currently being constructed. And so it's not in a straight geographic north-south order.
Right.
Why is that? If you are a member of the traveling public, why is it so disjointed?
Well, I talked about how far in advance we plan these projects, and really it was based on pavement conditions probably 8 years ago. That's when we picked the order and started applying for federal funds, and that's the order in which they arrived. And so, however, a lot of things can change in 8 years, and so sometimes we have constituents call and say, you know, they want to debate the pavements a little bit better in this spot than that, but we don't have the ability to move those grant funds around where we, you know, we're locked in from several years prior. Yep. And I think everybody agrees all of the pavement on Moreland Road needed to be reconstructed. So.
And so it's just a matter of timing and finance and all of that stuff.
You got it.
And you look at, like right now we're at the light here at the corner of Moreland Road and National Avenue, so County Highway ES and County Highway O. And we're headed north. We've got Muskego behind us.
Right.
I think Muskego is a great example of investment in the southern part of Waukesha County. We've made a lot of investment. I know our future capital plan has a lot of money in the southern half of the county. We did a major project there at the time, the most expensive project in the history of Waukesha County prior to this one, and that was the reconstruction of Janesville Road right through the center of Muskego. Can you talk about that project just really quickly?
You know, it was my first real big project when I first became the DPW Director for Waukesha County, so it's a favorite project, and it really has transformed downtown Muskego. It didn't have that sense of place prior to the county investment in that road, and I'm just proud of the way we partnered with the city of Muskego, and they put some extra dollars into that project to, you know, upgrade some fine finishes, and it really has made it a wonderful revitalization for that downtown Muskego.
Yeah, road investment it's important. The side benefit, and sometimes the primary benefit of it, is that economic development component.
Absolutely.
Which is really huge. You know, I think Muskego is a great example of that, but also the work that's being done here on Moreland Road. This is an incredibly important corridor for economic development, not only in Waukesha County, but in southeastern Wisconsin. It's a major, major artery. It
is. I think about over 10, maybe 13% of the traffic on Moreland Road is truck traffic. So it's commerce. And there are several business parks along Moreland Road. It's a essential part of the economic development plan and infrastructure in Waukesha County. And so and not just Waukesha County, but that's why we qualified for federal funds, because we were competing against all the roads in Milwaukee County, you know, Ozaukee County, Washington County, and it rose to be one of the priorities and has received a lot of federal funds in the past several years.
So we are still driving north on Moreland. We're approaching National Avenue, where the current construction starts between National and Cleveland, County Highway D. Before we get there, we're approaching, I can start to see the orange barrels right now, and I see the
Yes.
road construction signs. I think the police departments and sheriff's departments have done a good job about move over and slow down when you see a police vehicle or emergency vehicle on the side of the road. What do you want the traveling public to think about when they see these orange signs and barrels?
Well, first of all, they should really know that we sympathize with them, and we know that our road construction projects are disruptive. We absolutely know that, and we know that they can be tough for a small business. That when we're reconstructing a road right in front of their business, it just causes folks maybe to find a second exit instead of the one they're used to, and so that's stressful. But it's necessary. What's the alternative? That we don't improve it, the potholes get so bad, no one wants to drive down the road, someone gets hurt. I mean, it is a necessary thing to reconstruct roads, and but what we really want you to remember is just to slow down, give yourself some more time. You know, when you know you're traveling through construction, you can't leave at the same time for work in the morning. Give some extra time, and know that this is many people's workspace. They're out there. They are brothers and sisters and moms and dads, and it is a dangerous place to work.
Yeah.
And so please keep an eye out for them. They're your friends and neighbors, and please just have some patience. They're doing a very difficult job in difficult conditions under traffic and all sorts of weather. So give them a break.
And we're here at Coffee and Moreland, and Allison, you have an important update, a closure to tell our listeners about.
We do, and talk about some disruption that's coming. But July 21st, Coffee Road in Moreland is going to have a full closure for 14 days. So we know that's disruptive, but we can get it done much faster that way, and the final product will be much improved than trying to construct it under traffic. So a lot of times we just try to get in as fast as we can and out as fast as we can. And so we really want folks to think about that and for their commutes, and to take other routes. Depending on where you're going, there's lots of different routes. And so we're trying to get the word out so that people can plan.
So temporary inconvenience coming up on Coffee Road,
Right.
but long-term better project or better product, final product,
Yes.
that we will have in that intersection moving forward.
Absolutely. The pavement will last longer. It'll be a smoother ride. All good things especially when you're someone who uses it every day. You're going to benefit the most from that closure.
Yeah. So we see Flagman out right now. You know, he's starting to control traffic on this intersection. We've got lots of trucks, dirt being moved as we drive by this
Right.
segment. How long does this particular segment of road, or how long does this project last? So this is, again, National Avenue to
Right.
Cleveland, ES to D.
So it's this construction season. The pavement we anticipate will be done, late fall of this year, and the construction company, Hoffman Construction, they've been great. They were waiting for us to give them the okay this spring to get out here, but we had some utilities are in the ground. That's something a lot of people don't think about our road construction projects, and they have the right by law to be there, to be in the
You
county.
mean like a pipe buried under the road, like a gas or electrical or something?
And there's many different kinds, and they're buried sometimes under the road, but often alongside the road. And so to have a clean project, we really require those utilities to vacate that area and move to another section. And so there's coordination with all of that. And if that's not done well, it can slow your project down.
So is that something that could be a major cause for a delay in a project if it's moved back? And I know, some of these projects have kind of moved on the calendar up a year, back a year, whatever.
Right.
Sometimes it's because of those utility projects or the railroad or something that causes like a major disruption to their service they're providing.
You got it. And the railroad's a great point. They are notoriously difficult projects when you have a road that crosses a railroad. The railroad has a lot of laws from the 1800s on the side of the railroads, if you will. And so and it's a dangerous crossing, and we want to make sure everybody is safe and that we come in once and do it right for both the commerce of the railroad and the traveling public on the road. And so that can set you back a year or 2 years, when those coordinations don't go well, or when we don't agree, with the railroad company what kind of crossing it should be. So thankfully, we're getting that all worked out. But it takes a little bit more time, energy, and attorneys than folks might think.
Yeah. And so as we wrap up our discussion on Moreland Road, we're now north of Cleveland. We're at Rogers, where Rogers Street crosses
Making our way to
Moreland Road right now. Yeah, we're almost to Greenfield Avenue, another county highway. Any final thoughts on this project, or what's next after this particular segment gets completed? When would we do the segment that we're on, for example, just south of Greenfield Avenue?
Right.
Is that on the books?
We have another project. So there will be a year break in 26 from construction, and then D to 59 will be in 2027.
Okay.
And then south headed in towards Muskego, HH to Grange will be in 2029.
Okay, and then you'll be close to
but we know,
Road
like,
and
it's
do all
taking
the
just
things.
a little longer than we'd like as well. So we do have some little spot improvements on that portion in the far south, in that HH to Grange, that will be filling some potholes and things like that, just to hold us over until 2029.
All right, so we came up from New Berlin, just jumped on I-94 West, and a few miles down from here, from the Moreland Road, you'll hit SS. And if you're familiar with driving in this area, it's no shock to you that becomes a bottleneck, okay? It goes down to 2 lanes, you hit traffic. We've had many, many accidents, something we've been tracking for years. And from that SS to the Jefferson County line was an area that we wanted to expand, to make it to go to 6 lanes, right? A big project, right? That takes many, many years to plan. Well, so Waukesha County Executive Paul Farros sent a letter to members of the Joint Committee on Finance urging them to support an expansion for the state budget. So what ends up happening, if you've been following any of the budget news and how those negotiations went, the legislature passed an amendment to fund an $8 million study to examine this expansion. And then the budget passes, but then the governor rips it out in the middle of the night, overnight, vetoes the whole thing. So we get nothing here. Allison, what kind of a delay does that do to us? I mean, we kind of have to start over from square one here.
Absolutely. That means there's no timeline or plan on when it will get done at any point in the future. So that portion, and I really want to call out Senator Julian Bradley and his office, his staff. We worked with them on that addition to the budget. They've been great and worked really hard to try to convince their colleagues that indeed it should be a priority. And when you look at the data, it is by far the busiest and most dangerous 4-lane highway in the state of Wisconsin. And so that's what we're trying to highlight for people to realize that really it's a bit of a wonder to us that it's not being put forward as a priority because and we were looking at a section of 5 years of data, and there were 6 fatalities, and again, a lot of serious injuries. The delay it has the most delay of any 4-lane highway. It's just all the data. You look at it certainly points to it should be a number 1 priority in the state of Wisconsin.
And so Senator Bradley on the Senate side, Representative Chuck Widgers from Muskego on the Assembly side, fought to get it in the Senate and Assembly passed versions of the budget it was in. It got vetoed.
Yes.
And so now, timeline, where does that place us? It's incredibly important that a study be done of that segment of road. That puts this project on the DOT's radar.
Right.
Realistically now, what is the timeline knowing that Governor Evers vetoed this portion that's really crucial for Waukesha County?
Well, the legislature and the governor committed to, funding a $6 billion project in I-39 from the Dells to the South
So
State line.
it's sucking up all the cash.
So that's,
Yep.
if they don't infuse new cash into the state budget system for transportation, that's 20 years of all that money in in the majors program. So it's going to be difficult to get any new program, projects other than that project funded under the current funding scenario.
So really it's a matter of Waukesha County residents, unless there is change in leadership in Madison or a change in attitude on that particular project, it's going to be many, many years until we see
Correct.
traffic improvement.
Absolutely. And we're not just going to sit by idly. We're actively involved with the Waukesha County Business Alliance because they're hearing from their members that it's critical to economic development and commerce. And so that's what we're going to work on is building a coalition of folks who understand the importance of I-94 in western Waukesha County to Waukesha County, but to the entire state of Wisconsin, and just help educate folks, the decision makers, and hopefully we can get a project moving in the future, but not in this budget.
Okay, so we are currently on County Highway JK Lindale Road, and we are turning eastbound onto County Highway K, which is Lisbon Road that runs east-west across the northern part of Waukesha County. And last night you had an informational session on a potential project that would help reconstruct this road. So Allison, what's going on with Lisbon Road Highway K?
It is, and actually what we're proposing is to widen this road as well from 2 lanes to 4 lanes to a divided 4-lane highway. This stretch of highway in Waukesha County has an extremely high accident rate for the amount of traffic it has. Unfortunately, in the 5-year period that we reviewed, there were 4 fatalities and 85 serious injuries.
Wow.
And so that's what drew our eye immediately. But there's also a lot of delay. And it's definitely, if you travel this area, it's growing.
Yeah, there's traffic on it now, and we're driving at 2 in the afternoon.
Right.
There's a lot going on.
Right, and so we anticipate, and Sewer Pack is projecting those traffic volumes to increase. And so it's really indicating to us that it should be a 4-lane highway. But we've had 2. Last night was the second of 2 public meetings, and again, we're in the very, very beginnings of looking at this for a potential project. So the data all certainly says and is very convincing we should have a project. The biggest challenge is the price tag of, $125 million.
Wow.
So even more than Moreland Road. Now those numbers are projected out into the future, and even under the best case scenario that we would be able to get a lot of federal funds right away for this project, it wouldn't be constructed until 2031. So we're well in advance, but it's really the time to start to talk about it, to engage the communities, engage the folks that live along this road, and talk about do they believe there's a need? And we're definitely hearing from them there is an absolute need. There are a lot of safety issues that they have all identified. The data points to it, but their anecdotal experience also does. But last night we also heard a little bit more than our first meeting from folks that live on Lisbon Road. And of course, as you might think, they want to know exactly what the impacts will be to their property. Will we need, a strip of land from their front yard or not? And we're just way too far out in the process to be able to identify. It's a detail, but it's a very important detail to all of those individuals. But we're very early in the process.
And so we've talked about a couple of different projects here. They have gotten, chronologically more expensive, right? We talked about Janesville
Right.
Road in Muskego, which was a huge project for economic development. in the $30+ million range. We've
Yes.
talked about Moreland Road,
Right.
which is a multi-segment $80+
80+,
million
right.
project. Now we're talking about Highway K. Granted, it's out in the future. That's $125 million, super early estimate. Don't hold us to that number kind of figure.
Yes.
And this is more expensive than those other ones, though, because we're talking about widening, and it's
Right.
not just a resurfacing or a reconstruction, right? It is a massive widening
It
project.
is.
It'll change the profile of the road.
Absolutely, and we're approaching coming up here where there's a railroad crossing, and there's approximately 34 trains that cross here a day.
Wow.
And so if you ever take this road, there's a good chance you've encountered a train. And land and stone operation, we know that there are a lot of truck traffic on this road, again, very heavily traversed by trucks. We're riding behind one right now. And so what we are looking at, and a lot of the data is suggesting that the best case scenario would be to have a land bridge over the railroad crossing. We're hearing a lot from our first responders and their response times. Railroad crossings are a risk, adding several minutes to their response times.
Right.
So that would be a huge cost. We're also passing one of our substations, a county-owned property, that if we built a bridge, we'd probably need that property.
Yeah.
Now the good news is we wouldn't be mad at ourselves. We own the property, but we'd have to relocate that operation.
Structures get moved. Yeah.
That's another $10 million. So just that bridge alone is roughly speaking, probably $25 million project.
Yeah. Wow.
But when we listen to the public, everybody says, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense."
Yeah. And so this project's way out there. We talk about it because we had a public informational meeting.
Right.
But we're also talking about it because this is what we do as a county. We are looking to 2031. We're looking beyond 2031. And we're talking about what projects do we have on the radar that we need to kind of work out how this funding falls. We need to work out priorities, safety, pavement. I think it's a good way to kind of wrap up this discussion because it goes to all of the things that we're talking about. Looking out into the future for planning, figuring out how those federal dollars work, emphasizing public safety, emphasizing economic development. They're all things that the public wants us to do when we're looking at these things, and this project is kind of all of those things wrapped into one.
You got it. And our job really is to prioritize. There's so many needs across the county, and it's really our job to try to prioritize. And we're back to the beginning of the segment when you said, how do you pick projects? What's the number one concern? Safety. And in County Lisbon Road is a big safety concern for us.
Well, there you have it. Department of Public Works trying to keep you and your loved ones safe. Well, thank you, Allison, so much for joining us again here on GovCast. And, our road show today, literally about roads. Our road show will continue next week. Sean and I are going to check out the Waukesha County Fair. So we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to GovCast.